Hello, hello. My name is RENEE Bryant, and I am the founder of a little organization called PlayRX. And I don't like to talk very much, so I'm just going to get right into it because I want it to be a surprise. If you were lucky enough to have a childhood where you had stretches of time with a whole lot of nothing to do, no devices to distract you with gambling machines of dopamine, you had the unique luxury of being bored. And this boredom was ripe with opportunity, especially if you grew up in the 70s, the 80s, and the 90s, right? You'd get so sick of the boredom that you would naturally and instinctually find your way to doing something that would engage you. Maybe you'd find a stick outside and you would start whittling it. Maybe you'd climb a tree until you couldn't climb any higher. Or maybe, like me, you would go collecting literally anything that looked shiny or interesting that you could find outside, or maybe while on the floor of the fitting room in a JCPenney's. You might have written plays and performed them for your family, danced around, played ball, created competitions with yourself to see if you could make the best paper airplane, and if you got it farther than your brother, you were the champion. Now, this is the mammalian play instinct at work. We all have our preferences, but the underlying evolutionary muscle at work is play. Mammals learn by playing in their younger years to figure out the skills that they need later in life. If you see two bear cubs that are in the forest wrestling, tumble playing with one another, it is not useless time that they're spending doing nothing. They are developing evolutionary skills in order to find the exact edge of their own ability so that when they learn how to hunt, they get to a place where they have agency and understanding of their ability in the real natural world. All animals do this, and especially complex thinking mammals. It is a training arena. And the more cognitively complex the animal, the research shows the longer the creature will play throughout its entire lifetime. Humans are an obvious example, but so are dolphins, otters, and all forms of primates. And this is because their complex needs require them to continue the learning cycle past the stages of maturation. Because without play, we literally stop learning. If you want sources, go look up Dr. Stuart Brown. He's been researching play for 35 years and started the National Institute for Play in New York City. So why do humans, therefore, if it's good for us and we're supposed to do it throughout our entire lifetimes, why do we stop doing it once we reach adulthood? Ask yourself the question, when was the last time you actually played as an adult? Well, first, it might be helpful for you to know what play is so that you can see if that question is really true for you. You see, play is not an activity or an action. You might assume play means playing ball, playing basketball, playing a sport, playing some kind of instrument. You hear the word play and you might associate a particular activity with it. But play is not an activity. In fact, it has nothing to do with the activity itself. And it has everything to do with the attitude, the orientation, and the relationship that an individual has towards that activity. Technically, the activity can be anything. The play state is an attitude. It's a state of being. And it's characterized by a sense of joy, spontaneity, and full-on engagement. You lose a complete sense of time when you're in a play state because you are so engaged that all of your other faculties that your brain is usually doing to keep you in a sort of state of reality disappear because all of your energy is being consumed in the moment of play. Another key factor of play is a loss of self-consciousness. You're not thinking about yourself when you're in a state of play. You're not thinking about people looking at you, judging you. You're not thinking about whether or not you have the right body posture or whether or not you're doing something that's going to produce an amazing object. You're just so enjoying the moment of that play activity that all of your sense of self almost dissipates and you become kind of one with the play state. It is not about achieving a specific outcome, but it is about enjoying the process itself. A very unique state in comparison to ways that most adults spend their time. So some of you may have played in your adult life recently, maybe, but the odds are, like most adults in this culture, the relationship with play has changed drastically since childhood, and it is costing us greatly. Adults in the Western world live in a culture that says play is the opposite of work. And in a world where we have to fight to the top of the capitalist ladder to survive and be valuable, play is therefore extremely easy to abandon. This idea predates back to the arrival of the Puritan communities in the United States. Again, if you want sources, take a look at the Handbook of Play, Volume 2. It's under the history section. And the Puritans, when they arrived to the United States, were under extremely harsh conditions in order to survive. Okay? They had their lives on the line in order to figure out how they were going to colonize and not die. It was very easy for them, considering their religion, to adopt an attitude of work hard, and anything that is pleasurable is of the devil. Now, there's no disrespect here. This was actually a brilliant way of surviving an incredibly difficult time, and without that attitude, they may not have made it, for all we know. The problem is, however, when a survival instinct gets wrapped up in an ideology that ends up being carried into future generations. Play was seen as a waste of time and frivolous. Dancing was forbidden. Games only allowed for children. And that meant play, which can't and won't disappear from our evolutionary nature, went into the secret spaces of our culture. Brothels, gambling, and bars became the place for adults to let off some steam. Later, post the Industrial Revolution and the invention of the vehicle, it became popular for Americans to travel and take leisurely vacations. Play was sold as passive entertainment, and it came into full force to meet the need of how to show your neighbors that you had made it in the post-World War II world. In other words, play became marketed to us as entertainment, and then we used it as a way to compete against our neighbors to be better than them. It became so popular to drive long distances with your family, go on extravagant vacations, buy things and put it in your front yard to show off to the Johnsons. And it became so much of a new identity that adults were assuming that they were getting their play instinct out, but in reality, because they weren't choosing it for themselves, and it was a social pressure that was being placed upon them by companies that were trying to make more money, it became consumption and entertainment rather than instinctual play. Unfortunately, not much has changed in the mainstream culture today. Play is still taking its very ugly form in who got the new iPhone, how many movies, video games, TV shows, Instagram reels have you consumed in comparison to someone else. And children, unfortunately, are taking the hit more than anyone. Compared to the 1970s, children now spend 50% less time in unstructured outdoor activities. That's from the Massachusetts Institute of Technology. And for children between ages 6 and 8, studies found that between 1981, by the way, and 1997, so that's ending in 1997, free play, including unstructured child-led games, social play, and pretend play, toys, etc., dropped by 25%. That was in 1997. From a range of about a decade. We already were starting to see a drastic decrease, and this is the important word, in unstructured child play. We started replacing unstructured child play with structured activities, very similar to the way that adults take care of their play instinct and shove it in with a bunch of entertainment and pre-scheduled lives. We started doing it to children. It's time for violin lesson. It's time to go to soccer practice. You've got swim lessons at 5. We have to pick up your sister. She's doing some kind of extracurricular activity, and we have to make sure she gets there on time. Children have lost the ability to make choices for themselves in the way that they want to show up in their play state, and now have been told that creativity is good for you, so we're going to force it on you and make you do it so that you can get better at the skill, and then one day maybe you can use that skill to go make some money. Right? And yes, you might be thinking, well, adults have access to playful activities that are sort of more free form, like hiking and swimming and pickleball and game night. Yes, but the difference is the relationship to all of these activities, because remember, it is not the activity, it is the relationship that equals a play state. Adults feel like they have to do these things in order to check off some kind of metric for their well-being. A continuous leftover imprint from the same keeping up with the Joneses culture of the 1950s. It is still rooted in a desire for productivity and an obsession with personal development metrics. Where is unstructured spaces for boredom that lead to play? They've disappeared. Play has no desire for metrics. It is intended to be a space where a creature learns the edges of its own agency on its own time and at its own will. And to practice that agency, and not only practice it and learn the edges of its own ability, but learn and experience the brilliance of its own capabilities. If you've ever been in a play state as a child, you remember this moment of being impressed with yourself, right? You go into the woods sort of at late afternoon, mom's making dinner, hasn't called you yet. You decide to take a risk by getting onto a really big log that stretches over an area that if you fell, you could end up getting hurt. You decide to take the risk anyway. You take one step, your heart starts to race. You take another step, your heart really starts to race, and you enter into a play flow state, and you start to make your way across the log. It gets more exciting. You start to believe in yourself, and eventually by the end, you're laughing in this incredible awe of your own human capability. Play is about enjoying your own human nature the way that you want it to develop, in a way that is safe enough for you, but at the same time challenges you. It is a very important sweet spot that Mihai Csikszentmihalyi talks about in the flow state theory that he developed in the 1960s and 70s. So, our culture needs play now more than ever. According to Dr. Stuart Brown, play is an urgent public health necessity. The pandemic and its aftermath, our nation's extreme political polarization, global geopolitical conflicts, and the climate crisis contributed to unprecedented widespread levels of anxiety, depression, addiction, and hopelessness. Play is part of the solution. We as a species are primed to play throughout our lifetimes, and we experience less than the fulfillment of our overall design if play gets suppressed or lost in our task-dominated adulthoods. That's a direct quote from Dr. Stuart Brown. So what do we do about it? The great question. Number one, we have to break the structure that holds us currently captive. We must carve out time for boredom, creativity, and self-exploration that's on our time. And that doesn't come easily. It means you will have to destroy, break apart, and restructure the current fabric of your modern life. We have to get off our phones, our TVs, our low dopamine activities that suck out all of our time and energy, because yes, they drain our energy. You think you go to your TV at night or your phone at night to restore your energy after a long day of work, but the studies show it does the exact opposite. It drains your energy more than it gives it back to you. And it's intended to do that. Because the more that you feel drained, the more that you use it. It is an addictive cycle that is meant to take your attention. The greatest products that they have. And they are absolutely studying and working on ways to make sure that you never stop giving your attention to them. Right. Just like the food industry, we have now replaced so much with low dopamine activities that give our time to big companies that want to take more than they will ever give back. We must start by making a commitment to bringing in more spaciousness into our life. And that spaciousness provides the fertile soil for play to emerge from. Play must be self-led. It has to be something that you genuinely enjoy, not just a metric that you're checking off to keep up with the Joneses in the wellness world. And if you are in a constant state of anxiety and dopamine addiction, you're just going to hit the vape, hit the gram, and go to bed. And it's not your fault. Remember, this capitalist structure, which is not an ultimate enemy, but it does have its eyes on trying to get as many people addicted to their products as possible. The only way out of it is for you to realize it and get angry. To realize that you've been duped, that you've been manipulated, and to fight hard against it. You have to create time for play against every instinct and every part of your internal structure that's not wired that way. And you have to go up in every structure that's been put in place before you. God, all the way down to the timer on your Netflix that knows when you fall asleep. Because as Netflix currently has said, their greatest competitor is your desire to fall asleep. The second thing to do is to figure out how you personally like to play. Because so many of us have forgotten, it becomes a tricky thing to get back into. So Dr. Stuart Brown has developed a set of theories around play personality. And he starts with what's called a play history. So you go back into your childhood and you sort of observe all of the moments in your childhood that were in that activated joy state. That sense of timelessness, that sense of self-exploration and expansion. And you go back and you look at it and you start tracking all of these moments and see what they have in common. And you start to notice, did you like collecting? Did you prefer a lot of times moving your body? What about exploring the woods? Did you prefer competing with other people, joking around, storytelling, directing? Once you find out what your play personality is, you will be extremely delighted and surprised to find out how many activities as an adult you can engage in order to activate your personal play personality, which is a fingerprint that has never left you since you were a child. You are a developing mammal that learns by preference. Just because you grew up doesn't mean you're not right-handed anymore. Just because you grew up doesn't mean your play personality isn't the same. That's the way we learn. It is in the fabric of who we are. And all of us can play all of the ways, but we've got preferences. And once we figure those out, you can start to navigate, choosing how you spend those really big, expansive moments of time that you've now carved out for yourself, because that's step one. And you can start to engage in ways that really get you into a state of joy. The best part is, once you start doing this, it only gets easier and easier and easier to keep going. You can get your family and friends involved. You can begin to shape your life from the ground up again. And this is what it looks like to be a part of a play revolution. Because it is going to take a revolution to wake many of us up and get us back into the arena of claiming our own agency. The number one thing these companies do not want us to have is agency. And if it wasn't already obvious, play's primary function is to develop agency. You develop a sense of trust in yourself and in the world through the arena of play. And without it, you become increasingly anxious and afraid of a world that you never learned how to navigate on your own when it was safe enough to play around and learn the skills that you needed in order to thrive. It is our birthright and our nature to play. And when we suppress these instincts, we suppress our authentic, creative voice, we suppress our desires, and we suppress our ability to expand and to grow and to learn. So, will you join in the fight for your right to play? Thank you.
Yay! All right. Well, if you're enjoying it.
Little Q&A.
Yeah, everybody make some noise for Megan. Renee.
I've heard you before.
Yeah, thank you so
Where,
much,
here?
man. Yeah,
Or
probably.
somewhere else on the internet, bro.
Yeah, no, definitely. Most likely
Definitely on
that.
the internet.
That might be, yeah,
Freaking internet, I've heard you before.
yeah, that's me.
That's funny as heck. No, but yeah, by the way, congratulations on the success of your, if you'd like to sit down, if y'all do not know, Megan runs a page called theplayrxcure, where she goes over multiple snippets and gets people on play breaks and makes people use their imagination and makes people smile and just brings back this wildness that we kind of just lost. But she's been able to retain it, and not only that, but like access it and bring it out in a way that's so genuine and true and familiar. You know, so it's like really cool. It's almost like when you met a friend in 3rd grade that's like really cool, but like we're adults, you know. You know what I mean? It's like it's so cool. But I do have some questions for you. I was writing a couple things down, and my first question, so what was the personal experience that you had that influenced your view on play as an adult?
That's a very good question. So, I was an art teacher, visual arts teacher, improv, poetry, and theater teacher at the same school for about 12 and a half years. And when you're developing curriculum on your own, I didn't have a curriculum given to me. I was lucky, very lucky and privileged to be given the freedom to write my own curriculum. When you write your own curriculum and you're trying to figure out how to get 8th graders interested in drama, particularly 8th grade boys interested in drama, you've got to ask a lot of questions about how to invite them into a place they want to be, rather than force them to do something out of obligation, or in worst cases that, of course, many of us have experienced in the school system in the United States, out of fear, right? So I came upon an incredible book by Dr. Stuart Brown, which is Play, How It Reshapes the Imagination. It is a really long title, I can't remember because I always get it out of order. But it's an incredible sort of snippet of research that's meant for the layman. And I ended up reading it, and it changed my entire perspective on how I wanted to show up in the classroom. So I obsessively read it, got all of my team members in the fine arts department to read it, and then I started really championing this idea of like, if we don't get play, like unstructured but also structured in different forms, because there's lots of different forms of play, game play, all kinds of play, into the classroom, not only are we going to lose our students, but we're also going to train them to have anxiety in class, because they're not going to want to be there and they don't have a choice. And that's what creates this intense amount of anxiety, panic attack disorders, like all of this stuff, is when a child is forced against their will to do something, especially for a long period of time. So you want to give children choices. You want to give them the opportunity to engage. And what I really was interested in was, how does a child as young as 5 or 4 years old respond when they're given a challenge where they can rise to the occasion and really stretch themselves beyond what a normal adult would see as their capacity. Like if you treat a child like they're really capable, what happens? And amazing stuff started happening. I mean, the results were wild, and I started getting so excited about it. It was pretty much all I could think about. And then a few years later, I had a personal sort of life change. I ended up, my husband asked me for a divorce. I was completely in shock about it. It was the first time I had ever been on my own in my life. I was 26, 27, and I had to move out on my own, and I decided that I needed to kind of go on some kind of pilgrimage. I could sense a really deep need for something to get me through this very hard time. And so I ended up getting gifted The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron, which is a kind of spiritual pilgrimage of its own. And it's all about creativity and playfulness and being open-minded. And so then I got to, as an adult, start to take my own medicine that I was giving the children in the context of this 12-week program that I ended up stretching into 2 years. And it was that was by far the sort of embodied sense of wisdom. At first it was I had a bunch of knowledge and I was testing and experimenting and things were going the way that I expected, and it was really exciting because I was playing scientist in the classroom. But then I got an embodied sense of wisdom once I started doing it for myself. And then it dawned on me about 9 years ago, oh my God, I needed play so badly that I had to fight my way to find areas where I could do it freely, and I had to sneak it in. So I had to go to an art class, ignore the instructor, who was like, now you're gonna paint a circle. And I was like, hell no, I'm not doing that, I'm doing it my way, right? But I had to come with that inner sense of knowledge from all of this stuff I had been doing in the background for years, and show up in these spaces and go, I'm here to learn how to play again, and I need a sort of a fence in order to do it. but it was not in the like no one was teaching me how to do it. I had to kind of build my own curriculum my way. So I'd go to dance class, same thing. I would kind of just be like, I'm here to learn how to play. I'm not here to do the dance correctly. I'm here to learn how to just get in my body, and I'm here to play, and I'm here to play. And then I'd go to Kung Fu. I'm here to play. And then I'd go to yoga. I'm here to play. And then I'd go to here. And I'm here to play. And I'd just try all of these different creative arts spaces. And I noticed a trend. Almost all of them had this sense of, you're coming here because you're taking this hobby seriously, and we're here to sort of have like-minded adults who are into this similar thing. And if you're not super into this, it's probably not for you. And another trend I found was, especially in the arts, if you're not here to like grow your craft, take your craft seriously, get into your skill, I mean, you can have fun and make whatever you want, right? That's fine. But there was always this sense of like, for adults, if I'm not going to go do the art and make money off of it, why would I do it at all? Right? So that was when I came up with the idea for PlayRX, was about 8 or 9 years ago. And I thought, what I want to do is I want to create an environment where adults can come in with low stakes, or like creative play, prompts, activities, games, that kind of thing. And they don't have to feel like they need to belong into a certain creative arts group in order to participate. I think that was the most important thing that I wanted to kind of create. And I wanted to do it in a multi-variety kind of way, interdisciplinary way. One day you're going to do drama, the other day you're going to do visual arts, the other day you're going to do improv, then you're going to come in and you're going to do problem solving, engineering with marshmallows and popsicle sticks, you know. I really wanted to give adults what children often get in school, where they're stretched to their capacity in all of these different disciplines, and see that adults could also go into that arena and learn a lot about themselves, their inner critic, their fear, their blocks, and get them into a place where they could train or practice finding the subtle body intuitive impulse that lives within them, and realize that they've been blocking it most likely their entire adult life. Yeah.
Yeah, wow, what an answer. And it's wild because even when I was hearing you talk, there was a couple moments where I was like, dang, she ain't saying anything political, but this sounds revolutionary. like, dude, like, seriously though, because like, I mean, you were stating facts, you were stating real information that, you know, laws and structure that's been implemented on society, and then this and all these things, and it's like, it's in a way that like a conspiracy theorist would talk about, like the government and stuff like that, but you're stating facts and you're stating things like history, right? And yeah, like your mindset behind deconstructing all that and seeing where the problem is in order for you to reach the conclusion where you're at now, and then telling your story about how you maneuvered through experimental and just knowledge first, and then the embodiment process, and now where you're at now, it's almost like you've mastered the art of play, and you want to share that with the world, and, you know, be able to like, because you're so embodied in it. And I think everybody that's met you, like since I met you, like knows that you embody exactly what PlayRX is all about, you know, and it's really cool to see. So what do you think, why do you think adults stop playing? Like do you think it has much more to do with how society structures it, or is it like an individual thing, or maybe family thing, friendly? What do you think?
I would say because we're so unaware of how much society affects our development and our unconscious sort of preferences, it's difficult. This is a complicated thing. Society is not a thing you can blame, right? It's not an entity. It's not a devil in disguise or Sauron at the top of a tower with a big eye. Like, it can be represented or talked about as that thing, but society is made up of people that have made decisions, and oftentimes human beings, just like any animal, develop in order to try and figure out how to survive and how to continue their species, right? So there's all these incredible decisions that humans have sort of organically made, and then once that decision is made, you have to make new decisions based on that decision, and new decisions. So it sort of unfolds as cause and effect, right? So I look at it and I go, we are in a current postmodern world where we've lost so much attachment to a myth or a religion, right? So for a long time, humanity used myth and religion to kind of structure themselves, orient themselves towards something outside of themselves, and create a really deep embodied sense of meaning. Now, eventually, when empirical science sort of said, hey, I don't know if this is true, and everyone went, and then it all started falling apart, a lot of these ideologies became pretty obviously outdated for a lot of people, like for the majority in the West. And it has been that way for quite some time. And now, as a result of that cause and effect, which is neither here nor there, it's neither good nor bad, this isn't a moral issue, then we have all of these people that are going, who the hell am I? What happens when I die? Where am I going to go? What's going on? I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. And the worst part about this, and again, there's no blame here, it's just what unfolded. When you don't know, as a meaning-making creature, where the meaning lies, you put it in your government. You put it in the social, cultural structures that surround you because you don't have a choice. You're literally a meaning-making machine. You don't get to turn that function off just because you know stuff. And so the core issue is that now we go, instead of going to religion and going, you are my authority for meaning-making, or myth, or you are my authority for meaning-making, we go, society, government, you are my authority for meaning-making. And what does our culture and our society say is the most important thing? Producing shit. Making stuff. Becoming valuable to a company by giving your skills and your time and your labor. So now all of us, whether we know it or not, intrinsically are motivated by our cultural systems. No matter what religion you believe or not, doesn't even matter. It's inside of you, whether you like it or not, because you were born here. You have this innate nature of going, I'm not valuable if I'm not producing. And that has created this intense fear of doing anything that isn't for that goal. And so if play is now an enemy to productivity, we don't play as adults, right? And it just becomes natural. And we can talk blah blah, a lot of things, like the art community is a great example of this. Create freely, make whatever you want, do whatever. I went to art school and that's pretty much all they said. They're like, yeah, you have 6 months, make a painting, we'll see you at the end. And we're not going to come and check on you or teach you how to paint or anything. You just do whatever you want. And this freedom of expression, postmodernism thing is really interesting because you can say a lot about what you believe, but your instincts and your body can tell you otherwise, right? And so this is why this has to be an embodied practice, is because I don't care what you believe. You might be on the same page as me, and that's awesome. That's already a step ahead of a lot of people. But to get you in the arena and to get you afraid and to realize how much you're afraid of judgment, how much you're worried about other people thinking that you're doing something that's a waste of time, your own inner voice thinking that you're doing something that's a waste of time, and the fear of not producing a product that is going to get you applause and acceptance, you won't even know that you've got that instinct in you and how big it is. So you've got to get into the arena and then have it sort of rise up and realize, okay, this is a big thing and I want to work on this and I want to try and figure out how to free myself, liberate myself from this inner unconscious dialogue that I've inherited from just the natural cause and effect of things. Yeah, so I wouldn't say it's anybody's fault, but I can say for families that are really sold into the narrative of our culture and our society and our government, it's extra hard, right? And you can kind of sense those people out usually. So creatives are usually going to be like, fuck this system, I want out of here, I don't want to do this anymore. And they've got a way better shot, right, at already finding their play instincts maybe on their own. But they're still plagued, and they want to be free of it too. So everybody has, I think, an opportunity to grow massively in this arena right now, given our current circumstances. Whereas maybe in a different time, different place, different environment, this would not be the case. Because it's against our, I think, human nature, I believe.
Yeah, very powerful answer. I think one of the biggest things that stood out about your talk that you also kind of touched on right now is like us not really knowing what play is, or being fooled into thinking we are playing. And also one of the things that you posted on your page one day is that like, all these paint sips that people do, you know what I mean? Like, so yeah, it's an activity, you know what I mean? Like, but once again, that's what you're saying. Like, there's a goal in mind. Like, there's this like judgment still, you know what I mean? Like people are looking for validation. Like it's not like free flow, like not giving a shit what comes out, just like let's just have fun with it, you know what I mean? How about I close my eyes for a little bit and do this, see what happens, it's like, there's just so much structure to so much, and you're looking to kind of like not be so attached to that structure, to where like we're kind of, you're looking to embody your own uniqueness, your own individual self, and your own view of play, which should align with more of the ways that you're seeing it, where it is more free and not so trapped within the confines of this general idea of play. So yeah, very powerful.
I'll jump in about structure because I'm so interested in the topic of structure. Because as a facilitator, the question is, well, if it has to be self-led and play is like free form, then we got to get rid of the structure and then see what happens. Dear God, guess what happens if you put a bunch of people, doesn't matter what age, doesn't matter how playful, if you put them in a room and you're like, do whatever you want that feels fun, what's going to happen to a room of adults if you do that? They're going to go, this is stupid, I'm going home, right? What a waste of my time. You're going to trigger them to the point where they're not going to be able to participate or practice. So there's this thing that you have to do, and think of a good game that you would play as a kid. Or even better, invent a game as a kid. You always invent what? Rules. You have to have structure. You have to have rules to play. That's what's weird about play, is that again, it's not the thing itself, it's the relationship to the rules. It's the relationship to the fence and to the boundary. Because if you don't have the boundary, you don't know what to do. The coolest part about games, and this is actually research that I've just picked up recently from a guy named Thi Nguyen, who wrote Games as Art as Agency, I think. Games, Art as Agency. That's what it's called. And he talks about how games are brilliant because they have to have these rules and structures and boundaries in order for you to jump inside of. And then they sort of force you to problem solve and creatively think within the structure of the game creator. And you get to play in this world and really express yourself in this place. And if you didn't have that boundary, you wouldn't have created it at all. You wouldn't have even known you were capable of doing that if you hadn't had the structure in which that thing was created, right? So again, the structure doesn't need to disappear. In fact, it needs to be pretty solid, and it actually needs to be very well thought out, and there needs to be a tuning. Because if it's over-structured, like a step-by-step paint night, which you can still play with, if you've got a good relationship to it, you can go into a step-by-step paint and wine night and have a great freaking time. But most people don't, because they go into the space, they think they immediately get sort of in the classroom setting of the United States sort of public education system, and then they go, oh, I have to do this or I'm going to fail, and then they look at their friend and they're half drunk and they laugh their ass off and they make fun of their art, and what do? 5-6 months later, they throw it away, right? They don't hold any attachment to it because they're embarrassed of it, and they see the product as a reflection of their value. But the structure itself, if you go into the structure and you're like, okay, first we're going to paint this line for the tree, and you're like, hell yeah, I get to paint a line for the tree however I want, and you've got a play relationship to it, now all of a sudden the whole thing is play. So the structure is weirdly necessary. The thing I'm trying to train is a retraining of the relationship to the structure. So yeah, it's kind of a subtle thing that I'm always like, actually, you need a lot of structure to play. It's weird. It's kind of like an oxymoron or a paradox.
Right, but you essentially created your own. Like that's the, or you're looking to create, or you want people to create their own as well.
Outside of the space, yeah.
I see what you're getting at now. Yeah, no, that's incredible and very well thought out, by the way. Like very intricate, and the depth of it, like you wouldn't expect a subject like this to have such depth, but like it's with the sheer mass size of the normalcy of what we are in today's world of adulthood. This is definitely something that's very much untouched and very much like tip of the iceberg, you know what I mean, type of deal here. What would a playful world look like to you? Like if at least 50% plus were more playful, what would that look like, or what do you think you would see more in society?
Well, the first thing that I haven't talked about yet that I would see a lot more of if we were in a 50% more playful society is a hell of a lot more connection and collaboration between people. we wouldn't have such a polarized view of strangers in a world where there was more play. Because the coolest part about play, when you engage with a dog, a stranger, a dog you've never met before, right? And the dog looks at you. The coolest thing about animals, and all animals do this to a certain degree, when they're trying to size you up. Are you a threat, or can we play together, right? The dog will look at you, and it will give you, and it's kind of sizing you up. And if it senses it can play with you, or that you might be the one that's alpha or whatever, it's going to make a decision, and it's going to give you a play cue, right? It's going to bow, and it's going to look up at you. It might roll over on its stomach and show you its belly. It might wag its tail and kind of like look bashful. But it's going to give you some kind of cue that I'm not a threat, I'm playful. If we were in a 50% more playful society in humanity, we would do the same thing. Because that's exactly what we're made to do. We'd go up to a stranger, could be a threat, might not be a threat, we're not sure. But if we were more playful, we'd go, "Are you cool?" And then they'd be like, "Yeah, you are." And then we'd be like, "Hey, what's up, man?" Right? And then it would immediately be a mode of connecting. And therefore, we would feel like we have less anxiety as a result, and then everything becomes less threatening. In a world where we have more intrinsic agency, and we believe in our capacity to solve problems and to figure out how to handle threats, because that's what play does. It handles threat. It assesses and handles threat. Then you've got this amazing capability to go, well, then nothing's threatening. Well, sometimes things are, right? But things that are right above my risk level, I can play and figure it out. I've got the capability and the ability to figure things out. I'm a capable, full-agent human being. And then all of this stuff that used to give you anxiety now becomes something you can work with and figure out. And if everyone's treating each other that way, now all of a sudden it gets exciting to collaborate. Now all of a sudden things are being built together. Now all of a sudden people are working together on projects that would have never worked together on projects before. Because right now our society is so filled with fear. The opposite of play, a play state, is fear. Because play is so expansive and filled with hope and ability and agency, fear is complete lack of agency, right, and hopelessness. So in a world that's so fear-based, we look at the smallest little threat. I mean, even the most pathetic threat, like, oh, my DoorDash isn't going to be here on time, and I'm going to be hungry, and then I'm going to have to eat past the time that I'm supposed to that Oprah said, and then I'm going to be awake all night, and then I'm going to have a bad meeting tomorrow, and it just goes on and on and on and on, right? Instead of being able to go, I can handle this, I'll figure it out, playful attitude. It's everything's a threat, and especially people. And so that's the thing I would prefer to see most is like a world where people are collaborating and not threatened by one another. And another thing is, too, we would have way better inventions. Way better inventions. Ali Abdaal has this great book on productivity and like how to not get the productivity bug and how to be productive without like the regular sort of standardized social crap. And he mentions that there's all these Nobel Peace Prize winners, incredibly inventive scientists that say, yeah, you know what's interesting? When I came up with this Nobel Peace Prize winning thing, I was in a play state. And he just lists all of these different Nobel Peace Prize winners that mention at some point that they were in a play state when they invented the thing. So we would also have just an incredible amount of innovation. Where you've got people that are in high corporate meetings that are trying to come up with incredibly, life-changing inventions. Really good companies will put their people in a room and they'll go, I want you to just invent a toy. And let's invent a toy that can't possibly exist and see what happens, and get them collaborating in a room. Because when you can start to turn things three-dimensionally and play with it and really try and figure it out and not feel so stressed about the end goal but enjoy the process, you come up with really incredibly creative things in that process that you wouldn't otherwise.
Wow, what an answer. And you know what you also made me think about, since a lot of people live in fear, is that being nonchalant is almost like the bluff of fear. You know what I mean? It's almost like you don't want to show that you're being fearful, so you just act like you don't care. And that's kind of like a big problem with people not collaborating, is because it's just it's whatever, you know what I mean? Or they think they're too good, the ego gets involved, and all these just narcissistic ideologies kind of come into play. But you're essentially even deconstructing that and letting people know that, like, if we weren't so nonchalant or too serious, because there's like this line in the middle where like there's this play of like, you know, you take life serious enough to want to enjoy it, and really like know you only live once, so you want to be in the moment of it, but like also not so serious where it's a task. So there's like this fine line where you're trying to find us, and yeah, it's really cool and very well explained. So what would you at first let me ask, how does play how does play improve relationships, or how would you see the dynamics of like a romantic relationship versus how play can help with like your parents or sisters and stuff like that?
I mean, at root, it all does the same thing. Play, I mean, there's so many studies on this. Play, there's just oxytocin going everywhere, right? And you've got a play bond that happens between you and a playmate. And here's why the play bond happens. And this play bond happens between mammals, like outside of our species too, which is so cool. When you are sizing up your playmate, you're trying to figure out like, okay, I'm a bear cub, and here's my brother bear cub, or some stranger bear cub, doesn't even matter. And I'm going up to him, he's bigger than me, okay? So I already know I'm not going to be able to win this fight by brute force. So I'm, a very early bear cub or whatever, and I'm going to size him up, and I'm going to sort of engage in a play fight, right? And I'm going to have to use different tactics to figure out how I'm going to win, right? So if I'm in a play state, I'm going to get creative. I can't win by brute force, so how can I win? Speed, yeah, speed, evasiveness. You got a little Aang avatar shit going on where you're trying to like move out of the way and not get hit, You might be playing on defense and you're going to do something that's a little bit different so that you can win. But let's say that bigger bear cub than you that's a brother, punches you, pushes you down, bites you really, really hard, and it's not quite, it's past that threshold of play, and now it's into, oh my god, I'm actually in pain. Happens with humans too. You go, oop, we just passed the threshold, and you let out a cry. A play partner's gonna do what? Back off. Oh, I hit the threshold. And now all of a sudden, what's so cool is that before that happened, there wasn't as much trust as after it happened. So the moment that it happens, now all of a sudden you go, oh, Big Brother Bear knows what to do when I'm in a moment of stress, or when I'm in a moment where they've gone too far. I can now trust them in a way that I couldn't before because that activity hadn't existed yet. And the same thing happens with adults. When you're playing with adults, you literally grow in trust. And that trust grows and grows and grows the more you play. And so the bonds just keep getting deeper. And it doesn't matter who it's with. It can be with a dog. It can be with any creature that knows how to play.
Wow, yeah. Let me just turn this down real quick. Hopefully that's a little better. All right. Yeah, great answer. All these have been great answers. Oh my goodness. What would you say to adults who feel embarrassed or uncomfortable being playful?
Do it anyway. The embarrassment's not going to go away. You can't magically make the embarrassment go away, so you have to do it anyway. And that's the training arena. So you have to be an adult who is willing to go through uncomfortable things to grow and transform as a person and to expand yourself. And if you are willing to do that under those conditions, which many people are, then at that point you go into the arena and you get really embarrassed and you go, okay, this is a normal part of the process and this is the dojo. I suck at this. Nothing wrong with sucking at stuff. Society tells us, right, if you suck at stuff, you're not valuable anymore, that's a moral issue, you're bad. Not in my world. In play, you're welcome to suck at stuff. And I'm going to tell you suck because it's a fact. And it doesn't matter because it doesn't have anything to do with your intrinsic value. That's the lie we've been sold, right? I suck at violin. Oh, don't say that. Why? I haven't learned. What a weird thing to why would you protect me from it's just mean? No, that's an unconscious script that we've got. So you go into the arena and you go, oh, I suck at this. I'm insanely embarrassed. I'm getting emotionally triggered. This is incredibly hard. In IFS terms, internal family systems terms, you've got exiles that are coming up to try and protect you, right? And there's no bad parts in IFS. So you've got a big exile that comes up, feels really embarrassed, you get overwhelmed, you've got firefighters that are coming in, oh, ignore it, act like you're cool, you act like you don't care, which I love what you said earlier. Nathaniel Hawthorne has a beautiful essay at the end of the Scarlet Letter where he says the opposite of love is not hate, it's apathy. And so if you go into the arena knowing that you're going to maybe suck at it and you're going to get embarrassed and you're going to get triggered, and you go, I'm getting in the arena so I can get better at this, now you're in a play state, right? Because you're treating it like a dojo. You're getting in the arena, you're getting your ass kicked, and then you're going, okay, how can I beat this guy? Because I can't do it by brute force, so what am I going to do? You know? And that's where you start to get creative. And in those moments where you're unlocking things internally with yourself in that dojo practice, these things are really hard to put into words. But you're subtly trying to figure out the mechanism that's going to light you up versus that's going to shut you down. And the most important second thing I would say in terms of advice is to take baby steps and to go at a pace that is right above your comfort level. So if you're in an arena or you jump into the arena and you're getting your ass kicked so hard that you're getting extremely emotionally triggered, you're way above your skill level, then you need to not judge yourself and get the hell out of there and go into an arena that's right above your skill level. Because if you're at your skill level, you're going to be bored and you're going to get cocky. And if you're below your skill level, it's going to be a complete waste of time, right? You're going to be genuinely so bored. And if you're way too high, you're going to shut down. So you have to find that sweet spot, right in that area of risk that might trigger you, but not to the point where you're going to shut down. It's going to need to feel like a challenge you might be able to overcome if you get lucky, right? And that's when those play instincts come online to try and creatively figure out how to problem solve.
Wow, that's great. And it's funny because last week there was a picnic, the picnic sessions that they do with ashwagandha and stuff like that. Have you heard of those?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And there was this girl with hula hoops there, Pam Hoops. Yeah. Yeah, of course, like come hula hoop with me. I'm like, sure. And I didn't realize how bad I sucked at hula hooping. Like, I was like, holy shit! But like, I didn't give up, and I was looking around like there's girls and stuff like that, but I can give a shit less. Like, I just kept trying, and honestly, you had to really thrust really fast,
you do, yeah.
and in order for it to go. So like, I was looking pretty silly, but I was like,
But you're figuring it
this
out.
is fucking cool.
Yeah.
I got it down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, I was just happy that I was getting it.
Figured it out.
And it's like, yeah, it's so simple,
Yeah.
but like, I could have easily just been like, the first time it dropped, no, this ain't for me, and
Yeah.
walked away with like blush, like, oh, and hope nobody saw that, like,
Yep.
which I have in the past, you know, and me growing up, you know, like getting bullied and, you know, being around just jerks, like, I knew what it was like to like purposely get embarrassed and like feeling embarrassed, wanting to be cool so bad, wanting to get validated so bad. So, to be at this point now and then to hear you say it is like wow, like it just, it's a beautiful perspective to hear from somebody that gets it, you know, because sometimes I feel like the things that you say, like I've kind of like thought about, but I just didn't know how to put it into words, you know. So like you do a great job of really connecting with people, and or really, it's really reminding.
Yeah.
More than anything,
That's
like
right.
you're talking to like their inner child, like
Yeah.
like hey, like
Remember you did
come
this?
back, like
You
hey,
used to do this.
yeah, straight up, which is how you started your talk.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just thinking about those times. So yeah, that was awesome.
I'll say something very quick.
Oh,
This
yeah.
is very fun. So just to make a note, for individuals that have their play instinct in childhood completely suppressed because of intense amounts of developmental trauma, Dr. Stuart Brand actually started his researching mass shooters. And the reason he got into play was because he discovered that every single mass shooter that he studied, every single one, had some kind of problem in their play instinct development in early childhood, 0 to 8. And he noticed that because of the lack of play and the play suppression that was usually happening, oftentimes because of the hands of the father, because it was father to son, oftentimes that play suppression sort of was coming from father to son, it created this intense lack of agency in the unconscious system of the personality, to the point where it would head at a point where it would explode, and they would take a moment of all of the agency that they had never felt or received or gotten in their entire lives. And that would be the moment that they would go into that mass shooting situation and then to take their own lives, because for them that was the ultimate form of agency in a non-agency body.
Wow. You really remind me of situations where somebody has like a very tough father, either military background or just like very, you know, tough on the kids, where like, hey, why are you smiling?
Yeah.
Or like, hey, like, you know, questioning every little bit of fun that somebody would have. So thank you for stating that, because I think somebody probably needed to hear that.
Yeah,
you
and
know?
to know that they're like not alone, or it's not their fault. Like if your play instinct is really screwed up and you're feeling like you're not in the arena where all the other, you know, people are, and you're feeling really bad about it, it is not your fault. It's most likely because your play instinct was mildly or majorly suppressed. And obviously, it's not likely going to be the extreme of mass shooter, right? That's an intense situation where they're like genuinely not able to ever exercise their own will. That's pretty rare. But there are ways in which play instincts are still suppressed, you know, just in the way that we're raised. And so the fact that we blame ourselves for that is what I'm trying to release responsibility from. Like, it's not your fault. And most likely, it's not your parents' fault, right? Because it happened to them, and then it happened to them, and then it happened to them, and it happened to them, and then we go, who do we blame? Adam and Eve, you know? we got to point our finger somewhere, right? But in reality, like, there is really, truly no one to blame. This is just an unfolding of what happens. And people that get really angry and try and suppress play instincts are usually doing so out of fear, and they're trying to control. And so it's just this thing that's so sensitive to people, where it's like, oh, my value is attached to my ability to play. And, you know, JG's talking about how he can choose to do that in a park. I could never. It's like, it's okay. That's okay. Like, you have to play at the level that you're at and not take that hierarchy as a reflection of your moral or intrinsic value.
Yeah, so true. Seriously. How can communities encourage more play without it feeling forced or superficial?
Yeah, that's the golden ticket question of the evening. I think that's the real kicker. You have to have somebody that knows how to do it. And I hate that, because it means that means that that's a limited resource. And I wish that weren't the case. I wish I could say, follow my curriculum and you can do it too. But if you get it in the hands of somebody that doesn't know how to play and then says, this is the curriculum that we're doing in order to make ourselves better. Right now, the relationship has changed, the attitude has changed, and again, just like earlier, it's not the structure or the activity or the curriculum itself, it is the relationship and the attitude to it. So if you don't have someone to help guide a new relationship, then you're just a bunch of people that are doing something that feels like the worst icebreaker corporate game you've ever played in your life. Because you can take a corporate icebreaker game and make it incredibly fun, and you can take an icebreaker corporate game and make it the worst thing in your life, right? So it sucks. How does one encourage play? I'm bullshitting this and I'm improving, so first thought, best thought. So I don't have a defined answer to this. What if, so this is a curiosity, what if community leaders started with working on skills and tools to build authenticity? And if you're building authentic connection, then you're building a sense of trust in that community first and foremost. And then when you go into that arena, which is pretty risky and scary, you're at least standing on a firm ground of being able to trust one another and go, oh, this feels cringy and weird and gross and awful, but hey, you know what? I trust you, because we've spent a lot of time building that trust. So I'm willing to go into this with you, even though it feels really weird and like, and then you might end up having a breakthrough. But if you don't have that trust or that authenticity or that foundation, it's just hell on earth, honestly. It usually doesn't go well, unfortunately. And I've had a problem with it myself, trying to facilitate and create that kind of environment. It's a challenge. Because if I feel like any moment within my being, like I want to control the outcome and the product of the event, I've already killed it. Because my attitude shows up, and then people are looking to me, and that sort of creates this death cycle, and then it just becomes really forced and terrible. So I would say really good structure of that optimal grip between not being too overstructured and not being arbitrary and so loose that everyone shuts down. So an optimal grip type of curriculum and seated on a bed of trust of some kind. Or having playful people in the community that can sort of modulate or get things going. Think about a bunch of dogs in a dog park. If you've got a bunch of stressed out dogs that have attachment issues to their owner, right? You've seen those. They suck, right? They're just the worst. And they're all in the pen together. They're all going to be like, like whining and, like freaking out, yeah, and like peeing in the corner or whatever. But if you've got like 2 dogs in a dog pen of 10 that are playful, they can get the group going, right? So you kind of need people that know how to play already, which unfortunately is a limited resource, a really nice curriculum that kind of helps that optimal grip, and a really good connection and authenticity and trust between the members. So unfortunately, it's kind of a really high task. It's a tough task to overcome, which is why I'm really pushing my life mission in this arena, because I think it's kind of a tough one to overcome, and I think the more people, the more likely we're going to be able to actually push this in the right direction.
We need more Renees in the world, please. Please, God, let's manifest more Megan Renees into the world. Just want to say I attended one of your workshops, the live in-person one at the Arizona Center, and it was one of the most amazing experiences of my life because I never felt myself have such free, creative, imaginative moments with laughter, no judgment. The people there, of course, I had friends there, so like we're all lit, yeah. And you never kept us waiting. You know what I mean? So you make sure that we're on our time so that we don't get distracted, start scrolling on our phones, start doing this and that. It's like, yeah. So you're like no, like we're gonna do this, but you don't say it as it. You say it as it comes, not in the beginning. Like this is our itinerary for the day. It hits you like to a bunch of waves, and it's so cool and fun and very involved. Yeah. So you are involved in everything that you're doing. So it's really cool. What about for you? Like, how has embracing play just changed your life and your mental health compared to where you were before, where you are now?
Yeah. I think the most valuable thing, because that's done a lot of things and I could talk forever about it, but the thing that I personally find the most valuable from my experience with starting to play and do things that are really engaging my sense of play. So for me, it's going to the thrift store. I'm a collector. I freaking love collecting. I get in the zone, I can't stop. It's amazing. I get into a flow state, I can find a million amazing Dooney and Burke bags. Get out of my way. I can, I'll find everything. And I play through exploration, and I play through directing, and I play a lot of ways, like we all do. But what I've learned about a play attitude is that I have a panic disorder. So I have a phobia and a panic disorder that have been around in my nervous system since I was about 5 or 6 years old. My entire childhood, early teen years, early adult life, early 20s, late 20s, all of it was defined by terror and fear. And so my number one priority when I was around 13 years old was how the hell am I ever going to get out of here? Because the amount of fear and the panic attacks and all of this stuff that I was dealing with, it was making my life not worth living. So it became the number one thing I was trying to figure out how to solve. And I went to therapy and did all this shit, pop psychology. Sorry, but fuck you. You're the worst. It's unbelievable how much of a Band-Aid that is on a problem. Something that's that deep. You're just Western medicine. We'll put it on there and come back later because we have to keep you as our customer, right? And I just remember thinking, I'm broken. There's something wrong with me. Nothing is working. And I got into psychoanalysis, which is incredibly playful. And my analyst was incredibly playful. And he encouraged me to play and was a big proponent of me doing the artist's way. And so during that period of time, that was the first time in my life that I saw hope at the end of the tunnel. Where I was oh my God,
Jamar.
Hey, buddy. What's going on? Hey. Can you hold it?
No.
I mean, I'm using it right now. Can you hold it afterwards? I'll give it to you after.
Come here.
Yeah, okay.
You want to get all that?
So for me, the biggest personal, incredible thing play has done is it's helped me get out of a state of fear and moved me into a state of agency and capability, which was something I really struggled with and lacked as a kid. And it's changed my life. And I'm now more here on planet Earth than I was before.
Yeah, wow, what a story. And thank you for taking the time to of course share that, because it is hard for some people to just share some of those, intimate, we'll say like personal things, right? So yeah, thank you for being vulnerable and for the journey that you've gone on in order to get to this point, and the initiative that you took to get out of that, and now for you to be impacting this many people. Like, thank you for that. And, yeah, what a gift, So, what are some misconceptions people have about play? Like when you first introduce, or like maybe, like what do you feel like there's some things people don't understand at first?
Yeah. Number one, play's for kids. It's the biggest one. That play is only for kids. That play is going to feel like it is, what's the word? It's going to make me, I keep missing the word. I'm usually...
Like corny?
Yeah, corny, but patronizing.
Oh, okay.
But I'm going to feel patronized if I'm told that I need to play or something like that. And I need to do something that makes me feel disgusting, like, hey, well, why don't we play together? And you're like, God, are you going to make me feel like I'm not an adult? I think a lot of people have the misconception, and there's nothing wrong with this. I just want to make that very clear. A lot of people need to use this in this context to do some really appropriate developmental healing inner work for themselves at this stage of their lives. A lot of people use play as kind of this inner child methodology. I'm trying to contact my inner child, pull out my inner child, blend, that's an IFS term, blend with my inner child, so that the inner child sort of takes over my adult body and gets a chance to kind of show itself. Now, that can be used really well, especially if you're in the context of a therapist or doing some incredible trauma work. However, the misconception with play being inner child work is, does that mean I have to be or act like a kid? The answer is no. Play can be adult appropriate. You can play like those Nobel Peace Prize winners with adult appropriate intelligence and your own challenge level, which is at an adult level. So play is about being challenged. Well, if you act like a kid, of course it feels patronizing because you're not being challenged anymore. It's pedantic, it's ridiculous. It is really, really corny because you're so above that level where you were as a child that you're not challenged or growing in that place. So I think a lot of misconception about play, doing inner child work, and having those things kind of married together as an idea is that you have to be like, let's play, wee! And then everyone goes, oh God, that was terrible, I freaking hated that, I don't ever want to do that again, I don't want to see you do that again, I didn't need to get out of here. And it's because of that sort of married idea. So play is an attitude, and you want to be at the top of your own intelligence when you're playing. And that means adult intelligence. So you can play as comedians are such good players, and they're talking about the most obscene shit on the planet. That's so not kid appropriate, right? And they're playing like crazy. They're the best examples of play in our world, in our modern world that's accepted, right? Thank God for comedians. What would we do without them? They are the forerunners of play in a lot of ways, but in one particular play personality category, which is the Joker. There are all these other play personalities that you can be. But that one obviously makes the entertainment world, and then we consume it, and so, that's how we even get aware of that information. You're never going to meet somebody that's going to be some they're on YouTube, I guess, but explorer play types that go into abandoned buildings, and they're playing by exploring new arenas or whatever, and trying to find new things. And they've got a niche group of people that probably have an explorer play type that follows their YouTube videos, right? So you can also figure out what your play personality is by kind of trying to figure out what kind of content you like to watch, right? if you really like watching a bunch of comedian stuff, you might secretly be, oh, I could never, I'm not funny, blah, blah, blah. Well, you might have it secretly in there somewhere. What were you doing when you were 4 years old? Are you making jokes? Because you had the freedom and the ability to do that when you were 4, but you don't now, you know? So oftentimes our secret play personality can come out in the things that we really enjoy consuming. But I got off track. Yeah, play and having to be a kid and doing inner child work, I think, is the #1 misconception about play.
Yeah, wow. And you're so right about, like, yeah, it does get corny when people like act like a kid, you know what I mean? But like when you know that like there's an intelligence to being witty, you know, there is this just spark of light that is just comes so fast. It's like lightning, and it's like instinctual.
Yes.
Play is instinctual at that point versus something you think about and something you're trying to implement into your reality. Like, you don't have to try anything. If anything, it's just like that, a muscle you're looking to practice. That way, eventually, it's just like effortless, you know? So I got 2 questions left. If there's anybody watching on live right now would be a good time to start dropping your questions once we finish these questions and get into a Q&A. So if there's anybody on live that's watching, start dropping those questions. I just got 2 more for you. So real quick, shout out to water, where this show has been sponsored by water. Everybody please drink, hydrate. Coconut water preferably if you can. Structured water is very good. But yeah, fucking a flask with a tomato on it is definitely needed if you want to be a playful person in this world. So do you feel like distractions are taking us away from play? Or I guess like really the question is the hardest part about being playful being distracted?
I think it's the greatest threat. I don't know if it's the hardest part, but I think it's the greatest threat. Because it's the threat that is already pre-woven into our daily lives. And whenever you have a habit, it's just really freaking hard to undo a habit. So now that we've got these phones in our pockets and everything in its power is trying to take your attention away, the greatest threat to play is not having time to be bored. And so if you don't have time to be bored, then where are you going to play, right? So it's kind of this weird, awkward phase that's kind of like growing pains. You have to kind of do this weird thing because of the culture that we're in. You have to be like, I'm going to structure 4 hours in my week to play, which is fits our culture, right? We're like structuring play inside. That's fine. Absolutely fine. In fact, the longer you can do one chunk, in my opinion, the better. I think instead of 1 hour for 4 days in a row, a 1 4-hour day is way better. Because you want the brain to turn off and not have the ability to get distracted by the phone or whatever, so that it finally starts to settle into the question, what the hell am I going to do? What do I want? Because think about it this way. If you're constantly eating, you're never hungry. And if play is an attempt to reignite your intrinsic desires, and when I say desires, I don't mean like the standard sort of term for desire, but I mean like an impulse, like a play impulse, what you want, then you're never going to be able to contact that because you're eating dopamine all the time. So how the hell will you ever have the space to get hungry, to find wanting, to find impulse, if you're constantly shoving your system with dopamine? It would be the equivalent of eating food all the time and never being hungry. And the hunger, that desire, that wanting, that space that arises when you're a kid, when you're bored and you finally figure out what you want to do, it takes, I think at this point, a lot more time to get there. And so therefore our greatest threat is time. It's just not having enough time to do it. So you have to structure it into your schedule. I don't know how else to do it.
Yeah, I mean, we're getting to play, yeah, right? We make time for things we care about. Point blank, period. You know what I mean? I mean, if you want to work out, that's important to you, you will. If you want to stretch, get a yoga session in, you will. So if you feel like you're chronically bored or like just not happy, then maybe considering setting some time away from your phone, away from the distractions. That way, like you said, you can get to those questions like, what do I want? What do I want to do? Like it's so important, but like we don't ask those questions because we have all these, like we're being information dumped all the time. So matter of fact, we're not even hungry for the questions because we're being fed so many answers and all this stuff on the internet. Like we think we know it all, so we don't even want to get there and go there, you know.
Exactly.
So wow, yeah, very powerful. One more question for you, Megan, and like I said, if you didn't hear me, start dropping your questions in the chat. That way we can start getting to the Q&A after this. But share with me your why. Like, what is the reason you came here today to share about this subject in particular? Why are you passionate about this?
Short answer, I already answered, which is it's changed my life, right? But the second answer is I knew this is what I wanted to do by finding an embodied excitement around this. So about 8 years ago when I came up with this idea, I had a friend of mine that sat me down and said, what are you good at? What do you love? And how can you help people? And we're going to make a Venn diagram and see where those things overlap and what's in the middle. And what was left was this idea that wasn't a thing, which was I want to be a play facilitator. And it was like, well, that doesn't exist. And I was like, well, I'm not going to do that. That sounds really hard. You know, to invent a new thing, that's crazy. I've never heard of anyone doing something like that before. So the thought of being the first one is terrifying. So I put it on the shelf for a long time. But I remember that evening, she asked me, I want you to imagine what it would be like to do this. And I did. And this is why imagination is important also, by the way, is because it helps you to solve and feel things that aren't in your immediate physical world, right? Which is an incredible human ability that we have. And I sat there and I thought about it and I imagined being like this Willy Wonka in a studio and like letting people in and the lights are dim and no one knows what's gonna happen and there's a black tablecloth on a long dining table in the middle and there's a bunch of weird utensils and silverware perfectly placed with labels underneath them and no one has any idea what's about to hit them, right? And I got this embodied sense of, oh my God, my whole system did this incredible thing, which I'm sure you felt this before, where there's just tingling sensation everywhere, flowing through your entire being. It starts from the feet and it goes through the chest and it works its way out through the hands. Starts at the feet, goes through the chest, works its way out through the hands. And it was just repeating over and over and over again. And I felt this sense of openness, excitement, and true, what Joseph Campbell calls, bliss. And I don't think I could commit to any of this crazy shit that I've done in the last 2 years, leave my job, literally work off of my savings and try and start this company by myself with like literally no help, thinking I was the first one doing it. Because that's how I started. I thought I was the only one. Thank God I found out there's a whole world of people working in play. I just didn't have access to them through Google because Google wouldn't find them at the time. AI didn't exist then. Well, it did. You just didn't have access to it. And so I know in my soul that if I hadn't had that experience and it was just a thought or an idea that was in my head, I wouldn't have the guts to do this. But when you do what Joseph Campbell says, and you have the courage to leave home, which is society or what's been told your path should be, and you have the courage to break that and go on your own path into the woods, on your own with no path and just stick, and you practice this skill, which thank God I was in psychoanalysis, so I was building this skill there. You build the skill of listening to what feels right intuitively in your subtle body, and then listening to the signals that come back, if it's negative or if it's positive, and then you follow that. That kind of motivation is unstoppable, because that's what makes you feel like life is worth living, and you'll give up anything to do that. And I think most people are trying to figure out what their purpose is, what's my purpose, and they're never touching that embodied state of bliss. No wonder why you can't make a decision. Your body hasn't necessarily touched it, so how would you know? So we have to figure out how to get into an authentic place where our body is speaking to us again. This is why embodiment is so vital for play. So that you can start to find what you want, right? What meant to be doing on this planet. Play is going to help you figure out what your purpose is. And in my case, it happened to be meta. It's play itself, right? But for other people, it's probably going to be something else.
Heck yeah, wow. What a beautiful answer. Thank you so much, Megan. We really appreciate you sharing everything. Let's check our Instagram, see if we have any questions for you. So, let's see here. Go and scroll up. So, Audacity has a question. Do you have a vision for a community with an abundance of play teachers?
That is such a good question and a really complicated answer, unfortunately. Yeah, of course I have a vision for it and I want it to happen. The question is whether or not a community can be built in a top-down approach. And what that means is can you build a business or an environment that takes revenue from its customers and commits to building community? I don't know. And I have a feeling the answer is no. And I think that community has to be built organically and by the will of the people that want to self-organize. I think self-organization is so important for community building. So do I have a vision of like facilitators and people who want to play that are in a network together? Yeah. And a friend of mine who's on Instagram is already attempting to build one. That's her future business dream, is to get all play facilitators together kind of in one arena and have them play together and do stuff together, innovate together, come up with, curriculum together, all that kind of stuff. And she's awesome. And so I don't know if that's my journey. I think my number one journey is facilitating. And I can't think about anything else at this stage because that's my obsession, is trying to figure out how to facilitate and how to get people in the room doing the thing. And here's the thing that I want to make very clear about my work. I am not promising community. At the beginning I did. And I realized pretty quickly, intuitively, and I'm very grateful for my ability to think ahead like this, I went, something's not right about this and I don't like the way this feels. I don't like taking people's money and promising community in return. That disgusts me. And I had a good reason for it. And I started to notice that people were doing the same. There's just something that's not quite right about it. If you say, hey, I'm the one that's going to keep the lights on in this place, and you can come and go here as you please and self-organize as you please, amazing. Then you can take revenue. Totally great business model. But if you're promising community in exchange for money, problems happen so fast. And so I decided that what I wanted to do was build a dojo practice, a place for people to come and practice skills and then take them into their own communities. Because what I know that I don't think I can do confidently and ethically, especially ethically, is take people's money and promise community in return.
If there's anybody who has any more questions, now's the time to drop it. Is there anybody here in person that has any questions? Anybody here has a question for Megan? No? Going once? Going twice? We're going to check the Instagram one more time. It looks like we got no more questions. So, this concludes our All Truth Ed talk with Megan Renee. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. And looking forward to seeing y'all at the next one. Thank you, Megan. Amazing.